we want to turn to the Republican convention and a big night for the Trump family. Both Tiffany Trump and Eric Trump addressed the convention, making the case for their father, warning his defeat would be a disaster for the country. First Lady Melania Trump breaking tradition by delivering her defense of her husband and their work from the Rose Garden. Mary Bruce is in Washington with the highlights. Good morning, Mary.
Good morning, George. Well, we've never seen this before. The White House, the People's House, used for a political convention. Last night, the First Lady giving her highest profile speech yet. At times, it was personal. Melania Trump sharing her own immigrant story. But she was also defiant in making the case for her husband to serve another 4 years. Overnight, the First Lady stepping into the redesigned Rose Garden and into a political spotlight she often tries to avoid. Before her husband and a somewhat socially distanced crowd, Melania Trump trying to reassure Americans that her husband has the pandemic under control.
Donald will not rest until he has done all he can to take care of everyone impacted by this terrible pandemic.
And making a direct appeal to women as the president has been losing their support in key battlegrounds.
To mothers and parents everywhere, you are warriors. In my husband, you have a president who will not stop fighting for you and your families.
She was uncompromising in her defense of her husband, defiant in the face of the president's critics.
He's what is best for our country. We all know Donald Trump makes no secrets about how he feels about things. Total honesty is what we as citizens deserve from our president.
The night, a family affair. Tiffany Trump saying her father puts the country's needs ahead of his own.
Fighting for America is something he will sacrifice anything for.
And Eric Trump with a direct message for his dad.
I'm proud of what you are doing for this country. I'm proud to show my children what their grandfather is fighting for. I'm proud to watch you give them hell.
It was a night of firsts. Never before has the White House been used as a backdrop for a party convention. Critics say it crosses an ethical line and even raises questions of legality, using the power of the presidency for political gain. But the president, eager to use the trappings of the office to boost his re-election bid, leaning into the pageantry.
Raise your right hand.
Hosting a naturalization ceremony, swearing in new citizens.
Congratulations.
And granting a presidential pardon to convicted bank robber John Ponder, who has devoted his life to helping other former prisoners re-enter society.
Thank you, sir.
In another sharp break with tradition, secretaries of state normally avoid partisan events. But now...
Hi, I'm Mike Pompeo. I'm speaking to you from beautiful Jerusalem.
The nation's top diplomat delivering a political speech at a convention while on a diplomatic mission abroad, violating his department's own policy not to engage in political activity to back a candidate.
The way each of us can best ensure our freedoms is by electing leaders who don't just talk, but who deliver.
House Democrats now investigating if he violated federal law. And one slated speaker who did not appear last night, Marianne Mendoza. She's a so-called angel mom whose son was killed by a drunk driver who was in the country illegally. She was pulled at the last minute after she was spreading an anti-Semitic conspiracy theory on Twitter. She did later apologize, but it speaks to the broader spread we are seeing of some of these fringe theories. George.
Mary Bruce, thanks very much. Let's bring in our political analyst, Chris Christie, former Republican governor of New Jersey, friend and advisor to President Trump. Chris, thanks for joining us this morning. We're seeing the Trump family deployed in a way we haven't seen before in political conventions, basically every night. Some of the speech is quite political. Is it working?
Well, I thought the First Lady's speech worked really well last night, George, because she was authentic. She was honest, and they were her words, and you could tell they were her words. She talked at length about the racial crisis in this country, at length about the COVID crisis in this country, and made the pitch for her husband being the best person to solve those problems. So I think it worked very well last night for Melania Trump, and I no doubt she was the star of the show last night.
White House taking some heat for the president of the White House taking some heat for the use of the White House. Mike Pompeo giving that speech as a sitting Secretary of State on a diplomatic mission. It sure seems like the president has basically embraced that, despite the criticism and possible investigations.
Yeah, George, listen, I think everything changes because of the COVID crisis. There's no doubt in my mind that the president would much rather be in Charlotte, North Carolina, in front of an arena of 20,000, fans who were, cheering him on. But we all have had to make adjustments because of this crisis. You saw the big difference in the Democratic convention last week as well. The White House is the safest, least expensive place for the president to be doing this. He's taking advantage of that. And so I think these are very different times. My guess is you'll never see it again.
Halfway through this convention, what's the big unfinished business?
Laying out the agenda for the next 4 years. I think the president has to do that tomorrow night. He has to lay out what he wants to do for the country and how that contrasts with what Joe Biden and the Democrats want to do. That serves two purposes. One, to lay out a framework for the final 69 days here, George. And two, an attempt to force Joe Biden to start being more specific. Last week we saw the Democrats made the case that Joe Biden is a good, decent person. I believe that. I've known him for 35 years. But there were not many specifics at all about what Joe Biden would do as president from a policy perspective for the country. The president needs to draw him out, George. And the only way to do that is not to insult him, not to attack him personally, but to go after his policies by laying out your alternative.
Start that new debate. Chris Christie, thanks very much. Our full coverage of the Republican convention continues tonight at 7 on ABC News Live, and I'll be anchoring our primetime coverage on the network starting at 10.
Well, hey there, GMA fans. Robin Roberts here. Thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Lots of great stuff here. So go on, click the subscribe button right over here to get more of awesome videos and content from GMA every day, anytime. We thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the morning on GMA.